They replaced me with an AI bot they barely understood, so I built a smarter one, fed it everything I knew, and watched as it quietly made them obsolete. My name is Max Harper. I'm not anti-technology. In fact, if anything, I've been its loudest advocate. I built my entire career on the belief that good systems solve bad problems. That automation wasn't about replacing people, it was about freeing them. About scaling creativity, eliminating repetitive pain points, and letting humans focus on what we do best, solving the hard stuff. For over a decade, I worked as a senior software architect at a growing SaaS company called StaffSense. We built HR and payroll tools for mid-market enterprise clients. Nothing glamorous, no billion-user social networks, no flashy IPOs. But it was solid, stable, and real. The kind of product that didn't trend on Hacker News but made Friday afternoons less stressful for thousands of payroll managers. And I loved it. Not in a ping-pong tables and pizza parties kind of way, but in the deep, quiet satisfaction of building something that actually worked. I was the person who rewrote the job scheduling engine after a race condition caused a major outage in 2017. The guy who debugged the legacy permissions module that no one else wanted to touch. The guy who trained every junior dev, explained recursive joins in Slack threads, and stayed up until 2 a.m. pushing hotfixes for issues that didn't even make it to the client. I didn't lead stand-ups. I didn't network internally. I wasn't trying to climb. I just worked. Which is why, when I got a Slack message from my manager Troy, "Hey, quick chat," I didn't flinch. I assumed it was about the dev tooling upgrades we discussed last sprint. Maybe even the long-overdue bonus review. I clicked the Zoom link mid-coffee sip, expecting the usual awkward small talk. Instead, I saw two faces already on the call, Troy, looking extra uncomfortable in his branded quarter-zip, and Andrea from HR, her camera tilted just slightly too high, like she hadn't meant to join just yet. That was the first red flag. The second? Troy's opening line. "Max, first off, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for the team these past 10 years. You've been instrumental in helping us grow to where we are now, and..." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't need the rest of the paragraph. I already knew. My stomach dropped, but my expression didn't change. They were letting me go. Troy used words like strategic shifts and budget realignment. He said something about leaning into automation and scaling through emerging tools. And then came the part that truly hit. We've recently been piloting a generative AI platform to handle documentation, testing, and early-stage prototyping. The results have been strong. And moving forward, we're restructuring a few roles, including yours, to align with that vision. That vision. That vision was replacing me. Not with a person. Not even with a team. With a bot. An AI system trained on billions of lines of code, some of it mine no doubt, that could spit out boilerplate logic, suggest refactors, even generate client-ready technical proposals. They didn't say it that bluntly, of course. They said things like efficiency uplift and tool-assisted velocity. But I got the message. They were done with me. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't even unmute. I just nodded, said I understood, thanked them for the opportunity, because that's what you're supposed to do, and closed the call. The silence afterward was louder than the meeting itself. I sat there in my home office, surrounded by a wall of monitors, a mechanical keyboard I'd custom-built during the pandemic, and a half-drunk cup of coffee that suddenly tasted sour. Replaced. Not by someone better, but by something cheaper. That night, I didn't tell my wife. I didn't want to see the look in her eyes, the concern, the panic, the forced optimism. I needed time to process it myself. So instead, I sat at my desk. Opened an old folder I hadn't touched in years. It was labeled Contingency Projects. Inside were half-formed ideas. Personal tools. Scraps of code I'd written on flights, in hotel rooms, during off hours when the bug tracker was finally quiet. Tools that never saw the light of day because I was always too loyal to build something for myself. One of those tools was called Threadline. A smart middleware I'd started writing that could analyze API design patterns across different systems and auto-generate integration code. It wasn't finished. Nowhere near production ready. But it was good. Good enough that I once joked, if I ever get fired, I'm just going to finish this and bankrupt them. It didn't seem so funny anymore. I stared at the folder for a long time. Then I opened VS Code. And I started typing. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed to remember who I was, before I became a line item on someone's quarterly budget report. I didn't quit right away. That's what Jared expected. It's what they all expected. Take your severance, get bitter, disappear. Maybe post a long passive-aggressive "I learned so much" message on LinkedIn, collect a few pity likes, then vanish into a smaller job at a quieter company. But I didn't. Instead, I came in every day like nothing had happened. Smiled in meetings. Shared updates. Helped juniors debug broken queries like I always had. My calendar was still full of recurring stand-ups and roadmap sessions, just minus the authority. They'd stripped my title, sure, but they hadn't erased what I built. Not yet. But at night, I built something else. The first version of Threadline wasn't pretty. It was duct-taped Python, dusty Flask routes, and a hacked-together SQLite database. But it worked. That first week, it scanned 200,000 lines of legacy code and flagged 138 redundant functions. Then it started suggesting replacements. Smart ones. I didn't build it for the market. Not initially. I built it because I needed something that reminded me I still had value. Something that translated my quiet, furious grief into code. But when I showed it to Mel, she didn't just nod. She stared at the screen for a full minute, then whispered, "Holy shit." Mel had been a UX lead before the layoffs. They didn't replace her with a bot. They replaced her with a PowerPoint deck labeled AI-First Design Strategy. It had been presented by a kid with a computer science minor and a knack for buzzwords. She helped me rebuild the interface. Simplify the flow. Clean the prompts. She gave Threadline a face, and a voice that felt human. We shared an unspoken mission. We weren't just making a tool. We were restoring dignity. Mel brought in 3 teams she used to work with. All under the table. All burned out. All drowning in technical debt, fake agile, and the ghost of innovation theater. We didn't pitch them. We observed. We watched how real engineers interacted with their tools. When they cursed. When they clicked away. When they leaned back and sighed. Threadline evolved with every sigh. We removed the gamified dashboards. We killed the scorecards. No red XS, no green checks. Just thoughtful nudges. Here's a cleaner pattern. This module was updated recently. Double-check your assumptions. One developer said, "This feels like pair programming with someone who actually knows our codebase." Another, "I stopped dreading PR reviews." By week 3, Threadline was self-improving. Mel had built a feedback loop where engineers could approve or reject suggestions with a single keystroke. The model adapted, silently. Bug reports dropped by 41%. Deployments got faster. Review cycles shorter. Burnout signals, measured by work hours and weekend commits, flattened. Then something strange happened. One of the pilot clients, an ex-CTO turned startup advisor, asked if they could pay. We hadn't even priced it. He said, "This is better than anything we've tried. Name a number." We hesitated, then offered $999 per month. No contract. No sales pitch. He wired us the full amount within an hour. The next day, 2 more companies asked for access. We weren't in stealth mode anymore. We were solving a problem no one dared say out loud. Engineers don't need AI to replace them. They need AI to defend them. Defend them from broken deadlines and clueless execs. From idea guys with zero accountability. From managers who thought ChatGPT could replace 10 years of domain knowledge. Threadline became their shield. We kept it lightweight. Integrated it into Slack. Made it feel like a quiet colleague who never slept, never bragged, and never judged. One user messaged me personally. "I thought I'd burn out by 30. This gave me hope again." That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment and cried. Not because we were making money, but because we were finally making meaning. I called Mel. "We're not building a tool anymore," I said. She replied, "Then what are we building?" I paused, then said, "A signal." A signal that real engineers still mattered. That clarity could beat charisma. That tools could be useful instead of impressive. We didn't have a marketing team. We didn't need one. Our users shared it like a secret weapon. They called it quiet magic. We called it Threadline. The first thing I did wasn't revenge. It was reflection. I sat in the dim light of my apartment, a whiteboard in front of me, marker in hand. The city buzzed outside like it always did, but inside, everything was still, quiet like the moment right before a storm. People think getting replaced by AI is sudden, like a plug pulled in the dark. But that's not how it happens. First, they say, let's automate the low-level tasks. Then it's, this bot speeds things up. Let's integrate it further. Eventually, the phrase value-added human input gets thrown around in meetings like a compliment. That's the moment they're telling you you're next. You just don't know it yet. Except I did. And I wasn't going to fight to prove my worth to people who'd already replaced me in their heads. I was going to prove it to myself, and then make them regret underestimating me. So I started where I always start, building. Not a resume. Not a cold email campaign. A prototype. The irony? I used their AI tool to speed up my mock-ups. It was buggy, fragile, and poorly documented. I knew, because I helped test the first internal version before they brought in the offshore contractors to finalize it. Their bot didn't understand exceptions. It hallucinated rules and guessed when it should parse. It cost them more in corrections than it saved in labor, but the board loved the word automation on investor calls. Meanwhile, I built something smarter. Not bigger. Not more powerful. Just smarter. I focused on a niche, automating decision logic for logistics routing across unpredictable supply chains. It's what we used to call too messy for a bot. Turns out, it's just messy enough for the right one. I built in layers. A contextual memory layer to track inconsistencies over time. A human-in-the-loop correction model that didn't overwrite mistakes, but learned from them. And most importantly, a transparent system log. No black box. Every decision tagged and time-stamped for review. Within 3 weeks, I had a working demo. It ran on local infrastructure, ate raw data like a monster, and spat out predictions with 20% better accuracy than their production AI. I didn't pitch it. I let it breathe. I made coffee. I slept. Then I opened the folder I called Bridge Burner. Inside were 6 names, people from our old client list who had quietly reached out after I left. One had said, "If you ever do your own thing, let me know." I let them know. But I didn't ask for anything. No contracts. No commitments. Just a question. What if you had something that didn't just automate tasks, but made your decisions more correct? I sent them all a link to a private sandbox. No branding. No splash page. Just function. 5 responded. 2 ran it against their live data. One called me the next morning and said, "This solved a bottleneck we've had for 6 months. How the hell did you do this?" I told him the truth. You replaced me with a bot. I built the one that should have replaced me. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Can we talk NDA?" That was the moment the fire caught. Not in the industry, yet. But in me. I'd spent so long being quiet. A background process in my own career. The architect behind the curtain. But now, I was the product. And the more I leaned into that, the clearer my path became. I reached out to an old friend from the data privacy world. She helped me bulletproof the compliance layer. Then a former UI/UX designer I mentored 3 years ago offered to wrap the whole thing in a clean, no-nonsense front end. We called it Glassroute. Because unlike the opaque AI systems my ex-employer used, this one was clear. You could see how every decision was made. Clients loved it. Investors got curious. But I wasn't ready for noise. I wanted leverage. So I waited. Meanwhile, the company that had replaced me with their half-baked bot? They were floundering. Bug reports piling up. Clients demanding human support. Cost overruns from having to hire back the very people they'd laid off. I watched quietly as Jared, yes, they made him the AI integration lead, posted on LinkedIn about AI disruption done right. The post had 26 likes and a comment from someone I used to mentor. Funny, didn't Ethan build that logic model? No one replied. That's when I knew it was working. The story wasn't about me anymore. It was about what I built. And now, I had a decision to make. Go back, show them what they missed, and ask for a seat at the table? Or flip the table? I chose the second. Because sometimes, the only way to win is to rewrite the game entirely. The morning I knew everything was about to change started quietly. Too quietly. The company Slack had less noise than usual. No morning gifs. No overused coffee memes. Just a stillness that felt staged. Forced. Like people were waiting for something to drop. That's when I got a DM from Maya. Maya, 7:42 a.m. You didn't hear this from me. Check the hashtag Team Updates channel. They're announcing something at 10. I clicked over. Nothing yet. But I knew the drill. Something big was coming. And considering the last announcement had been my own replacement by a glorified chatbot, I wasn't exactly optimistic. Still, I waited. At 10 a.m. sharp, it dropped. From Leadership Team. We're proud to unveil Phoenix 3.0, a fully autonomous support solution powered by our in-house AI platform. This rollout will eliminate redundancy, streamline workflows, and position us for explosive scale. Then, in smaller print. Effective immediately, several legacy support and solutions roles will be sunset. Impacted team members will receive separate communication. Sunset. There it was again. The word they used instead of fired. Sounded softer, more poetic. As if they were doing us a favor. As if being devalued and discarded was just a natural part of the ecosystem. I didn't get an email this time. Of course not. They had already sunset me months ago. This was just the aftershock. But here's the thing they didn't know. Phoenix 3.0 wasn't entirely theirs. Not really. Because I had written the original scaffolding that version 1.0 was built on. I had led the data labeling for the initial training set. I had architected the fallback routing logic when the AI failed to deliver coherent results, which it often did. More importantly, I had access. Not to their version, but to the same open-source base model they'd customized. And I had my own pipeline. Faster. Leaner. Untethered from their legacy bloat. I started tinkering. At first, it was just curiosity. Could I build something better? Not just reactive, but proactive. Not just a support agent clone, but something more strategic. Something that understood context, emotional subtext, business value. A few weeks in, I had a prototype. I called it Chimera. It wasn't pretty, but it was fast. It learned on the fly. It adapted to edge cases. It prioritized client sentiment over scripted protocol. And it didn't try to sound like a robot with a motivational poster addiction. Then I tested it. I fed it anonymized transcripts of past client interactions, some from my old job, others from open datasets. Chimera not only handled queries better than Phoenix, it fixed issues Phoenix escalated unnecessarily. That's when the idea hit me. Why just build a better bot, when I could build a replacement ecosystem? Not for employees. For entire product stacks. See, the leadership team at my old company had made a mistake. A big one. They thought replacing people with AI would make them efficient. They never thought those people might start using AI better than they ever could. And I wasn't the only one thinking this way. I reached out to a few old connections, not from my old team, but from the AI ethics panels, open source contributor groups, and backchannel forums where the Rayal builders lived. Within a month, I had a team. 4 engineers. 2 AI researchers. A product manager who'd been burned by 3 consecutive layoffs. We weren't just bitter. We were awake. We formed a stealth collective. No company name. No LinkedIn pages. Just a shared repo, a rotating meeting room on Jitsi, and a mission. To build tools that made middle management obsolete. We didn't hate leaders. We hated performative leaders. The ones who clung to authority while knowing less than the people under them. The ones who replaced competence with compliance. The Jareds. By month 2, we had a beta. It could automate internal documentation, schedule logic-driven workflows, triage support tickets based on actual urgency, not arbitrary tags, and interface with CRMs using natural language. We tested it with a friendly startup. Their ops team of 6? Replaced with 1 engineer and our tool running 24/7. The results? Response time, down 60%. Resolution accuracy, up 30%. Customer churn, down 15%. Word spread. Quietly. Privately. Other startups started reaching out, founders tired of bloated org charts and overpriced AI consultants. And then it happened. A friend forwarded me a screenshot from my old company's investor newsletter. We're aware of a new competitor in the automation tooling space. Their platform, though still in stealth, has been cited in several client migrations. We are assessing implications. They didn't know it was me. Not yet. But they felt it. Their empire wasn't being attacked. It was being out-evolved. And the kicker? My team didn't want revenge. They wanted autonomy. I was the only one who cared about poetic justice. About symmetry. So I crafted it. I anonymized Chimera's core modules and uploaded a simplified version to GitHub with perfect documentation. Under a pseudonym. And I tagged it, Phoenix Alternative, if your AI still acts like an intern. It trended for 2 days. Got forked by 4 different teams. And then Jared posted a tweet. Some irresponsible devs are undermining enterprise-grade innovation with unregulated tools. This is not how we build the future. I didn't reply. But I smiled. Because the future had already been built. Just not by him. I didn't watch the board meeting live. I didn't need to. By then, I'd already seen the draft memo. Leadership realignment. New era of human-centered innovation. They never said my name. Of course not. But every sentence was soaked in what I'd done. At 11:14 a.m., the notification came in. Board decision finalized. Carson and his team will be stepping down, effective immediately. That was it. No fireworks. No big scandal. Just a polite corporate exhale. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even stand up. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, laptop on the coffee table, an untouched bowl of cereal slowly wilting in almond milk beside me. The blinds were half-drawn. A beam of pale morning light split across the rug like a spotlight I didn't ask for. It was over. But it wasn't done. They thought they were done with me when they handed me that NDA and showed me the door. They thought replacing me with an AI was the future. Something sleek. Scalable. Controllable. Instead, they woke up something far worse. Me. With time. And motive. The tool I'd built, Deltagray, was never about revenge. Not really. It was a framework. A modular system that could deploy faster, learn quicker, and serve clients better than anything Carson's team had ever duct-taped together. But more than that, it understood the people behind the input. It was trained on human nuance. Not just codebases and datasets, but years of decisions, context, screw-ups, and saves. It didn't just answer questions. It knew what questions should have been asked. And unlike their shiny AI assistant, mine didn't hallucinate. It didn't make promises it couldn't keep. It didn't collapse under real-world pressure. We'd already signed 3 of their former clients. One had messaged me directly. Yours just works. We don't want smart, we want stable. That was the win. That was the entire thesis of Deltagray. Make it smart enough to adapt. Quiet enough to disappear. And strong enough to never need explaining. A week after Carson's departure, I got a call from the same VC firm that passed on me a year ago. Suddenly, they were excited by the traction, and wanted to discuss synergies. I let it ring out. Then turned my phone face down. My team was enough. 5 people. No deadweight. Everyone did their part, no one chased titles. We had no marketing. No landing page. No Twitter. But we had trust. And working code. And for now, that was more than enough. I ran into one of my old coworkers a few days later. Sarah. One of the few who stayed quiet during the Carson era. One of the smart ones. We crossed paths at a bookstore, of all places. She held up a worn copy of Anti-Fragile and grinned. You were right, she said. They built something brittle. And you didn't push back. You just watched it crack. I nodded. Systems collapse faster when they're hollow. She asked me what I was doing now. I gave her the short version. She said, "If you ever need a UX lead." I just handed her a card. Blank on the front. One email on the back. That night, I poured a drink and stared at the glowing codebase of Delta Gray, humming quietly on my ultrawide screen. We weren't done. We were just beginning. The world was chasing AI like it was some kind of magic spell. But the future wouldn't belong to the flashiest model or the one with the biggest dataset. It would belong to the builders who understood where machines stopped and people began. I took a deep breath and opened a new document. Delta Gray 2.0, Human-in-the-Loop Adaptive Protocols. Because if they were going to build machines to replace us, then we were going to build the ones that deserved to. And just before I shut the laptop, a new email hit my inbox. Subject line: "We heard what you did. Let's talk." No name. No company. Just a thread waiting to unravel. And me? I had the scissors.